Hello everyone. The reason I wanted to make this video is because the amazing amount of comments on my last video that were just thanking me for being genuine about the process, how it's not always easy. I struggle. I, compare myself to other artists, which is definitely something we shouldn't do. And that made me realize that there's so much online about how to paint and not as much about this mental struggle that we go through as artists. Sorry, it's getting a little dark in here suddenly because it's like this little forest tunnel. Today, in general, for me, is all about playing in my sketchbook. This is something I do very, very often. A lot of my videos I share online are tutorial style stuff, but today I am just here to paint and enjoy. I am going to record a little bit of the painting process. What I want to do today here in the forest is use lots of color. I want to just go wild with color. Instead of focusing on, oh, this should be gray, oh, this should be this color, whatever, just play. Just mix up some crazy things and see what happens. So I encourage you to get out your sketchbook and have a playful session as well, so that we can kind of be in the same headspace together. Wasn't she beautiful? I feel so alive and creative when I'm in the forest. God, the light coming through is just amazing. I just soaked my feet, but it was worth it. It's the price you pay when you are heather hunting in the Highlands. I'm trying to get lots of reference photos while it's all purple and while the forest is still green, because I love that combination of colors. And I use it throughout the year to inspire my art. I think giving yourself permission to play is one of the most underrated things you can do as an artist. I remember when I first started, I was so incredibly excited and kind of addicted to the process of trying to paint more realistically. And although for the majority of my time as a painter, I've always used sort of crazy color combinations, there was definitely a time when I was really focused on realism. And nowadays, it's far from that, but I still want my paintings, my subject to look like what I saw or experienced in real life. And when you are trying to go for any type of realism, studying is really important. I think that studying what is real, what we actually see, in combination with giving ourselves permission to play is probably the best combination. Giving yourself permission to play allows you to experience the painting process from a whole different side of yourself. It maybe allows you to tap into how you feel versus just focusing on the things you see and the, rules of color mixing and all of that. Some ways that I allow myself to play are to start painting without a sketch, which I know might sound crazy to some people, maybe something you never thought about doing, or maybe it sounds intimidating, which I understand because it was to me at first as well. But after doing it for quite a while, I now feel more of a sense of freedom rather than fear of messing up, which again is a huge part of giving yourself permission to play. I think driving out that fear and just letting yourself do anything you want in your sketchbook without worrying about the results. In this case, obviously, I'm sharing it with the world, but most of the time when I'm having these little playful sessions, it's just for me in my sketchbook, and no one will ever see it. It's all about the experience rather than the results. I do think that we learn a lot from these sessions because when you break rules, you understand why they're important. And, it's not that you have to even think about the rules while you're doing it, but in retrospect, oftentimes I think, wow, I totally went against what, is taught about color or even composition or any of the rules I've heard. And it still worked, or it worked in one little way that maybe I want to carry forward into future paintings. So play and have fun, but then maybe after the fact you can look at it and see if you've learned anything that you want to carry forward. I think nowadays it's so easy to get caught up comparing yourself to other artists. Maybe you follow someone online and you see them posting lots of work that is just totally, utterly inspiring. And you think to yourself, wow, I'll never be able to achieve anything like that. And that automatically puts you in a detrimental place because when you are comparing yourself to someone else, you aren't taking into consideration every step that they've taken in their life to get them to that point. They've gone through different things in life. They have different circumstances. They've studied for different amounts of time in different ways. There's no possible way you can logically compare your own experiences to theirs. They also see the world in a different way than you do. And tapping into how you experience the world is what it's all about. But you can't do that if you're constantly looking at other art and constantly comparing yourself to other artists or trying things that you see other people doing. A lot of it has to come from you just sitting down and playing and literally just seeing what happens. That's something I tell myself all the time is, let's just see what happens if I do this or that. And that's a very freeing place to be. The older I get and the more serious life becomes, the more I want to do this in my sketchbook. And to be honest, I think that's a huge reason why I've moved away from pursuing gallery and exhibition work and just focus all my attention on painting outside, painting from life, going on hikes and adventures, and painting during the moment. Because to me, it allows me to tap into something that I feel like can easily get lost in the seriousness of being an adult. It's not that I want to live in a fantasy world. I know that I have adult things to do and I can be serious when I need to, but there's something so magical and special about just letting go or not even thinking about the rules, just playing and seeing what happens in the sketchbook. And of course, for me, it's also the way that I commune more deeply with nature. So, letting go of those rigid constructs that I've learned over the years about painting and composition and everything, and just letting what's in front of me completely pour through me onto the page. If you don't paint outside from life and you prefer painting from reference photos, you can still do that. Maybe you can try changing the colors you see from the reference to something totally different. Replace yellow with orange or even purple, see what happens. There are definitely ways that you can incorporate these playful techniques into any type of situation, any type of art. One of the ways I'm able to paint from imagination is because I spent so many years practicing looking at a reference or what's in front of me and changing one or two little things. So maybe there was a tree on the left side, and in my painting I tried to draw it in reverse on the right side. And you slowly gain those skills of being able to sort of magically change what's in the reference or what's in front of you and just do it how you want to do it on the paper. Maybe that sounds a bit too much for someone who's just starting, but trust me, if you practice it little by little, eventually it becomes more normal. And now I can look at anything around me or any reference and I can just paint it how I want to paint it. And I don't have to rely on copying exactly what I see. I think that's another really fun way to play in your sketchbook and not worry about the results. Just practice changing little bits here and there. Just got back to my car and surprise, brambles. I'm starving. Gonna pick a couple for the road. Only the juiciest. So yeah, when I'm at home sketching, trying to go into it with a playful mindset, I try not to look at references. I just try to go off of memory and feeling. In this case, I wanted to paint this part of the tree again because I wanted to play with some different color combinations as different to what I did outside on location. So yeah, sometimes I don't do a sketch. Sometimes I just jump into the painting part, but I've been loving drawing lately, and that's another part of the playful process for me. I'll do just a kind of plain background, I think, because I want to focus on what's happening on the tree. Basically, all that dappled light that was kind of filtering through the trees, like landing on the trunk, it was kind of glittering and moving, and it was so fascinating. But it could be very distracting. Sometimes it's just so distracting when I'm there in person and there's so much going on that I can't quite focus. So when I get back home, I can do lots of different versions and just play with color combinations. I think today I'll do a limited palette. I mean, I pretty much always do a limited palette, but we'll go with the basics. You might be wondering why, how can I use such a small palette? I usually don't need more than this amount of mixing space. I'm very used to mixing on tiny palettes outside, so I have a lot of different mixing trays in the studio, but this just kind of helps me keep things concise and organized on my palette instead of letting it get totally out of control and messy. I know some of you know what I mean about that. We all do it. Because I'm doing little sketches in my sketchbook, I don't need a ton of gouache. The other day on Instagram, I asked people what they like to sketch when they're just chilling on the couch, maybe at the end of the day or something. And it was interesting to see such a huge variety. Some people said they paint the inside of their house, the room that they're in, like they paint their surroundings, which I don't think I've done that. I tend to paint things from memory, like maybe trees or buildings, places I've been recently. I kind of go off into my own little world. Sometimes I paint things I see out the window. What are you doing? Floki just jumped up on the... Oh. Oh, are you lonely? Usually he's off playing in the bushes. Is this your new spot? What is it? Yeah. Yes. Well, we're back inside because it is ridiculously hot out. I was overheating, my camera was overheating, and it was just time to come in. So we'll finish our sketchbook session in here. The reason I put the tape on upside down is so that the words don't distract me. I kind of wish it was just blank. I'd prefer it just blank, but yeah, when it's upright, the second I look at it, I read it and it just distracts me. So when it's upside down, I can like look past it a little bit more. Okay, so I'm gonna do another similar thing that I did up there where I have a background and then I draw the tree on top of it, kind of going outside of those boundaries just because it's fun. So got my palette. I think I'll use some brighter yellow in the distance. If I'm not painting completely opaque, like right now it's just a little bit watered down, as you can see, it will blend with the color of the paper. So I know that this yellow will be a little bit more dull because some of the paper is showing through. We do have a bit of autumn colors showing up, which is fun. It's just starting and I can't wait. I love autumn. It's my favorite season. Especially because it's gonna cool down. I swear, ever since I moved to Scotland, I cannot tolerate the heat at all. Like, I just overheat so much quicker than I used to. I mean, coming from Colorado, I was very, very used to the hot summers. But it wasn't humid like it is here, which is definitely a big difference. I just completely lost that ability. Now I just need to find shelter as soon as it's warm. But I think that's why I especially love hiking in the off seasons, which is even better because then it's not as busy. People aren't flocking to the highlands. And maybe the best part is that there are no midgies, because those little buggers are vicious and very difficult to deal with. They can totally ruin a hike. If you don't know what they are, they're like tiny mosquitoes in a way. You can't even see them, and they just travel in swarms, and oh man, you'll just be walking around suddenly feeling like a little pinch or a little bite and it starts itching. It's painful and itchy all at once. It's just not fun. So I avoid hiking in areas known for midges in the summer, which is the West Coast and the more mountainous and unfortunately some of the most beautiful places in Scotland have the worst midges. So right now I'm just still staying in that playful mindset and allowing myself to just let it flow, I guess I'd say. Here's a new brush. I'm gonna be announcing this soon, but I have some new brush designs coming out along with a really fun project I've been working on for months. It's a gouache subscription box. I'll talk about it more in another video, but yeah, keep your ears out if you're interested in something like that. We'll do like a live stream, and I think live streams are good for talking about things like that because I can answer questions in, oh, whoops, gotta take the tape off. I did it again. This tape will be in the gouache subscription box. It's my new favorite. So will this palette, which is the perfect little sketchbook size. What was I saying? Oh yeah, live streams are awesome for being able to just casually chat about stuff, and I'll be able to answer questions live instead of trying to find the questions in the comments. That's a struggle I have. Let's see. There's a lot of moss on this tree. Gorgeous summer day in the forest. Trips like that where the light is perfect and I can stay there for ages and not rush. I get so many references and they last me years actually. I still use references I took years ago. Different forests have different colors, different vibes. I like to really get to know the forest and find what's unique about it when I'm there and try to capture that in the images. This was a little bit more of a dry forest, I would call it, whereas some other forests I've been to are very humid and moist and have a lot of dripping mosses everywhere. Just, you know, everything is covered in moss. This one had kind of more of a dry moss on a lot of the trees and the ground. That's a common theme though in Scotland is moss, just everywhere. Which is challenging because painting green, mixing green is something I am trying to get better at. And it's like everywhere I go, there's a different green. There's so many vibrant greens in Scotland. Especially in springtime, the fields are just covered in incredibly vibrant green, which is a challenge to make it look, because in person it doesn't even look natural. So it's like, okay, how am I gonna mix this so that the painting looks sort of natural when in person it's amazingly neon green. I really love this filbert style brush. I like square brushes. This is probably my second favorite type for gouache. Since I designed it a little bit longer, it's very flexible, so I can still kind of get that soft layering effect that I like from my other brushes, but this one has a bit, you know, the edges are curved and I can get some nice soft edges in here. This is another one, which is a lot of fun to play with. I have a couple different sizes of these in the new set. I can't wait to show you guys. Oh, but I'm not going to talk about it. I said I'm not going to talk about it till I make that other video or till we do the live stream. Let's see, what else has been going on? I've been so distracted by my visa process. Like, it's been so stressful. I just completed the final stage in the 5-year process, which is my final application for permanent residency. It's the most expensive one and it had the most paperwork. I think it was a lot, but it's in. The application is in. I can't do anything else except wait. And they say it could take up to 6 months to find out. So I'm just trying not to think about it, but it, you know, I just finished applying a few days ago, so it's still fresh in my mind. Ugh, I just want all of that to be done. I feel like I haven't been able to like fully start my life because I've been waiting for this. There's like piles of leaves all around, or I mean leaves scattered all around the base, the tree. It's a lot of fun to play with fall colors. I mean, they're not quite, the leaves aren't quite falling yet. There are a lot of leaves just on the forest floor that have that kind of rusty orange color, and they're there year round, really. But when the canopies start changing color, oh my gosh, it's just magical. I grew up with the most magnificent autumn. The color is changing so much. And Colorado was also amazing because of the aspens. They turn into these bright yellow and orange canopies against the pure blue sky because it's such a high altitude there. It's really amazing. And there's a few areas in Scotland that get a lot of the color changes, but I've noticed it's definitely not as intense as much as it's not as widespread across all of Scotland as it would be like if you lived in New England. I mean, if you've been anywhere that has a lot of deciduous trees, you've probably experienced very intense autumn colors, but the majority of forests here, it feels like are evergreens, so it's not quite the same. It's just fun to play with the combination of the deep greens and the vibrant greens, but with all those rusty tones. I love it. I actually love the palette, the way the colors kind of bleed and flow together, and how vibrant it is, and then you get a lot of grays in between. Those make each other stand out, and it's just like, you know, in a painting, that's kind of the point of using a lot of gray and white, because then when you place that next to just a little pop of color, it makes it even stronger. So the majority of the painting can be very, very muted, very gray, and then boom, when you need that color, you can very carefully place it and it just stands out against everything else. I think I'm gonna add a little blue to the shadows. It's one of my favorite ways to liven the shadows up. blue and purple. It's kind of fun to add the paint before I draw these roots, because then if I'm painting on top of a drawing, I tend to want to stick to that drawing, and it's almost like a paint fill in the blank kind of thing. Whereas if I start with the paint, I just let it flow, and it feels very natural, and I explore more. But then I can come back in and give a little definition with some of the pencil lines. Drawing tree trunks and tree branches are one of my favorite things, I think, because it can be so abstract. And ever since I moved here and I've been exploring these really old forests, there's a lot of oak and birch, and there's just the branches and the roots everywhere are just so dynamic. I love playing and kind of exaggerating it a little. So funny, whenever I'm like, yeah, I think I'm done, there's always something that pops up. I'm like, oh wait, just a little more there. But the thing is, it's not, when you're playing like this, I think it's even more fun and beneficial to leave it almost finished, so you can like see your thought process unfolding. So now when I come back in a year and I look at these, I know I could have taken this farther, but seeing it in this kind of almost finished stage inspires me more. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm obsessed with sketches, like sketchbooks, and I love seeing other people's sketchbooks more than finished art, actually. I've mentioned this many times before. It just inspires me because it does feel almost like I'm peeking into their mind. More than a finished piece. I know, like, an artist can say a lot with a finished piece of art, but there's something so raw and beautiful about the sketch. All right, yeah, let's call this one done so I don't overdo it. It's like, that's always the danger, isn't it? I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it inspired you to pick up your sketchbook and play. And I am sure that I will see you all soon again. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.